So we're in chapter 28 of your United States history book, section 1, and we got through a lot of technology and technological advances during this time. Went over television, went over radio, television, onto GPS, satellite, the space program, all these things, and we got to the computer and now onto the internet. When we talk about the history of the internet. So, Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, under President Eisenhower. So we're talking, way back in the 1950s. During the Eisenhower administration, he created these research projects in response to Sputnik 1. Sputnik 1 was the satellite the Russians put up to basically spy on us. So Eisenhower knew we need to respond to this, and we need to get advanced in this area too. So a new agency to initiate new technology and discover safeguards to protect the United States and communication infrastructure from missiles that could be launched from space. So the first thing Eisenhower thought, because at that time during the Cold War, it was suspected that possibly Russia would want to launch missiles. They had nuclear missiles and be able to point these missiles at us and maybe even launch them at us. So we lived under that fear during that time. And so when Sputnik was put up, Eisenhower thought we need more information. So in this area, we need to be involved in satellites in space too. So this fear led to the Advanced Research Projects Agency network, ARPANET, ARPANET, you'd call it, ARPANET. So I would say ARPANIC, like are we gonna panic? But ARPANIC, this led to this research project. So the first one was ARP, Advanced Research Projects Agency, and then on to Research Projects Agency Network, two different ones. So ARPANET became the progenitor of the internet. So the beginnings of the internet. So by 1970s, Ray Tomlinson and Lawrence Roberts pioneered email, the first emails, the computer emails. Here's a picture of the two of them here. So in 1990s, the internet exploded because of the new World Wide Web, WWW, World Wide Web, that was invented by computer scientists Tim Berners-Lee and Robert Kalayo. So here's a picture of, I think this is Tim Berners-Lee. So the web opened up new channels of global communication and created a worldwide market now. Now we have what? Google, we have all the World Wide Web. We can get on there and find all kinds of information, right? So here we have a picture, the first, as the computer, the first, and you can put each step of the way, all the way up to our World Wide Web, which we would consider the internet. So ARPA being the first of Eisenhower, that's way back in the 1950s, all the way to the 1990s with the World Wide Web. And here's a picture how it kind of works from the satellite to Earth to our computers with the internet. Transportation. Okay, there was a lot of advances in transportation during this time. World War II ended and automobile companies, car companies, transitioned for military vehicles and airplanes to building new cars. So they had to go back to building cars because during the World War II, the industries that were building cars changed and started building tanks and started building planes. And so now they would go back to building cars. New models appeared each year. There was a different car model, and families had a lot of options, and some like this and some like these. Also during this time, roads, bridges, and tunnels were built, and cross-country travel became more readily available to the public. As the highways went in, especially the interstate highways, the cars could go long distance now. And this stood out as a symbol of American prosperity to the rest of the world. When the world saw that almost every American had a car, and how the automobile industry was booming there, that led to showing the world that we were a prosperous country. So we look here, here's back then, the roads, here's one, the tunnel here. You can see back then the older cars going through. I can't remember which tunnel this one is. Here's the building, and here's a couple of the cars back then. I like this picture with all the cars lined up here. So everyone at this time was going to buy a car, each family. Tunnels, bridges, and interstates. In the 1950s, Brooklyn Battery Tunnel was the largest underwater vehicular tunnel, and it was opened and it connected Brooklyn and Manhattan in New York City. There's a picture of it right here. Here's another picture when it opened. All these cars wanted to go under. This is like in the 1950s that they had now a tunnel that was going underwater, an underwater vehicle tunnel, right? In 1957, the Mackinac Straits Bridge connected the upper and lower Michigan Peninsula. Here's a picture of the Mackinac Bridge. We actually went there just like last year or so, across the Mackinac Bridge, and it's very long. It's a very long bridge, and it's a very historical bridge, because here you can see where it went. Here's the Great Lakes. So basically the Mackinac Bridge coming through here linked, basically linking two states through two states when you think of Michigan, or peninsulas right here. So you can see where the Mackinac Bridge is. So, and that was 1957. Then on to the interstate highway system was the largest domestic building program in America's history. So it totaled 41,000 miles of roadways linking one end of the country to the other. So just think of the interstates. What would we do if we didn't have the interstates to be able to travel every place in our cars, right? 41,000 miles. Can you imagine? I probably traveled on all of them. 41,000 miles of interstate. So, and this was the largest domestic building program in America, the biggest building program. So this availability of roads created a need for motels. In the late 1950s, over 53,000 new motels had been built along these highways. Here's a picture of one. I actually stayed in that one. It's in California, right on the coast of California there. It's Half Moon Bay, Sea Breeze Motel. I've stayed there. So anyway, it's kind of weird. I just noticed that was the hotel I've stayed in. So here we have the tunnels, the bridges, and we have now we have an exhalation, or we're excelling in the automobile industry. The interstate system. In 1956, President Eisenhower signed the National Interstate and Defense Highways Act. So way back, Eisenhower, 1956. This was inspired by his visit to Audubon in Germany during World War II. So it's kind of weird. He went to Germany and he saw that they had a type of highway system. And he thought, that's what we need. Eisenhower realized the effectiveness and necessity of such a system in the United States if ever a foreign power was to invade us. So basically he said, we need to be ready in some way to get transportation across. So we need this interstate system for our welfare and for our defense system. So the United States highway system cut down cross-country travel for military convoys from 2 months to a mere 5 days. Can you believe that? So it used to go across country, it used to take 2 months for us to go across country because our roads were not very good. But now with the new interstate, we could go across the country like 5 days. In fact, it takes Perry and I, Papu and I, to go 5 days from California to Florida. We could actually do it even faster now with the highway system going on the interstate. So the primary purpose was to allow American troops to defend the homeland against those who wished to harm it. Although Americans now are blessed with easy daily travel because now we have this great interstate system. See the pictures of the interstate. How the interstate highway system changed the United States. So, and surely it did, because now everyone would need a car. And now a lot of vacations would be by driving their cars somewhere. The age of the automobile. Well, General Motors and Ford Motor Company and the Chrysler Corporation supplied the majority of Americans with automobiles. So we have Ford, we have General Motors, and we have Chrysler. The different cars were different shapes, they were different sizes, they were different colors, and anything, and they were also all affordable. Usually they wanted to be had to be affordable for Americans. In 1950, the famous cars were Chrysler's Plymouth and Chevrolet's Bel Air, and these two here were very popular during the 1950s. See the 50s look here? And so on to the 1960s, where more powerful muscle cars were built, and Ford released the Mustang. Here's a picture of Mustang right here. Mustang ended down here to muscle cars. Chrysler released its Dodge Charger in 1966. This is a Dodge Charger up here. So, and Chevrolet then redesigned and added more powerful engines to its iconic Corvette. Of course, we have the Corvette, one of the first Corvette with Chevrolet now. So this was indeed the age of automobiles. The age of automobiles. In the 1980s, the car industry began more environmentally friendly cars, smaller and more fuel-efficient cars. Foreign cars became available, and the iconic cars such as the Volkswagen Microbus and the Beetle, and the Volkswagen Beetle, and the Honda Accord and the Toyota Corona. So here we have these pictures. Now they're looking at, oh, these are pretty efficient cars here. And now we have cars coming from foreign areas, from Japan or from Germany or so. But here we have the Volkswagens here. We have the Volkswagen Beetle, Microbus, onto the Toyota Corona, and onto the Honda Accord. So some pictures there of some foreign cars. And consumers took advantage of the increased production in the wide variety of cars. In fact, it says 9 in every 10 households soon had an automobile, giving this era in American life the title, the age of the automobile. So this indeed was the age of the automobile, as 9 in 10 households had one. Airplanes. So airplanes, we know the airplanes were used dramatically in World War II, in fighting the war. But now major airlines began offering flights across America and to other continents. So passenger planes. New and improved passenger jets and airports were built during this time. In 1967, the Department of Transportation was founded, and under the Department of Transportation was also founded the Federal Aviation Administration, called FAA, and that was to improve safety and regulate the countries and airlanes where the planes were flying. They needed somehow traffic control of airplanes when there got to be a lot. So here we have some of the first. We have Pan Am here. It's kind of weird how they're sitting here. This is inside Pan Am here. See how it's so different than it is today, huh? When you travel on an airplane. So here we have pilots. Here, of course, now we have the stewardess here. The federal FFA here. That's their logo. The railroad. Well, what happens to the railroad? Well, trains declined during the Cold War due to more people. They were not traveling on trains anymore. They were using the interstate highways and they were owning their cars. So they didn't have to take a train. In the old days, everyone had to ride cross country by train if they wanted to get there on time. Most railroads now switched from steam to diesel locomotives to make travel more efficient with the diesel railroads. But numerous railroads found themselves in financial trouble. Why? Because they weren't taking a lot of passengers, that's for sure, anymore. So during the 1960s and 1970s, many of the railroads had to merge to avoid bankruptcy. And in the 1980s, railroads were deregulated by the government, and they formed newly merged companies that were able to become profitable. So remember back when, back in time, the railroads business, the railroad tycoons brought in a lot of money. And because basically they had a monopoly on travel. Because if you wanted to get any place, of course, you had to buy a ticket on a train, right? So not anymore. So that's caused them now. Before they were regulated by the government. Now they're not regulating trains anymore, of course, as they used to. And the trains actually had to merge so they could even survive during this time. So these are the railroad trains. So they're not going to be as popular. But although now, you can still take a train across country, but now you can fly so much quicker. And a train now, is basically Amtrak. There's only a few of them that go, and as they take quite a while, and you could almost drive there, for the time it takes to take a train. So anyway, this is during this time. I think this is one of the last. Yep, that was the last slide. So we're going to get into the next section. We're going to talk about daily life, and we're going to talk about social issues during this time.